And people always ask, like, what did you do differently? And it was, I allowed myself to enter the cave of my grief and then share that. And that's the difference between a safe man. Most people think, or they're trying to become this high value man by accumulating all of this stuff and avoiding their pain even more by, if I just get this next thing, if I just have this certain amount of followers, if I just have this, if my relationship is this certain way, or if I even have a relationship, right? Like, I just got to get to that. And none of it fucking matters. A high value man is a man who has the awareness that his value comes from his presence.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to All Smith. Today I've got an incredible guest. He's the founder of The Inspired Man. His mission is simple but incredibly profound: to help men heal the boy within so they can show up as the safe, secure, and grounded man their partners, families, and communities need. I'm really excited to explore what it really means to be an inspired man. None other than Ryan Moresby-White. Welcome to the show, man.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for having me.
We talked a little bit around, we could call it coincidence. We could call it divinity. We could call it timing. We got introed by a mutual friend. But the likelihood of you being in town, the schedules lining up, like some sort of energetic cord was drawing us together for this conversation today. And I can't help but reference that before we dive in.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Yeah. It's being able to listen more instead of forcing life, allowing to listen to the subtle callings and being able to actually allow yourself to live in that way, in that right relationship with the listening. Yeah.
I love the concept of listening because you have a patience about you that I really appreciate. And when I first started the podcast, almost 4 years ago now, I almost felt like I had to fill every empty space. I felt like I was learning the security and the confidence once you pressed record. And it's an interesting fight with imposter syndrome, which is inevitably going to happen in the human experience. But what's fascinating to me is that you take the time to process. You take the time to truly listen. And the word listen it's fascinating to me because in the world of meditation, which I would say is listening, in the world of prayer, it's maybe communicating to God or higher power. The listening is hard because we have so many inputs, so many distractions and things going on. When you think about listening, you've talked a lot about grief too in your Instagram content. How do you share the definition of where somebody could start truly listening? Because so much of the world is, I'm waiting for you to stop talking so I can respond. Or it's, they're not really keen to what's going on in the world. They're not observing nature and watching the birds and feeling the sun and the wind and the air and the energetic cord between people. They're making assumptions and judgments, which then infiltrates the listening headspace. And now you've got smoke and mirrors and you can't really absorb what's truly trying to be communicated.
When I think of a child, I think of a perfect, fully expressed being that is curious about the world and lives in this sense of awe and wonder for the smallest things. A child that feels safe is a child that is curious and that is playful and that is curious about the world. And wants to know how things work and operate and has questions and has what I've recently learned, spiritual questions as well. As a child, I had deep spiritual questions around death, around life, that no one could actually answer for me. But when we don't have our core emotional needs met in childhood, survival is more important. So we all come from a family system, and the survival of being liked and accepted and fitting into that family system is more important to us than us being curious about the world and being present. So when we don't have safety in our family system, in our family unit, that sense of curiosity and presence and awe and wonder for the world starts to slowly disappear, because it's more important to survive than continue to be yourself.
It's that tribal culture and not wanting to be the black sheep.
Yeah.
Which is why conformity is so common in this modern age.
Yeah. And a lot of people think they don't have childhood trauma. There's all different kinds of trauma. There's trauma from like capital T trauma, where a big event happens where it's very evident that it was very overwhelming for your nervous system and you didn't have the capacity to process that experience. So you become stuck in that energy. That's what trauma is. That's what most people think. That's most people's experience of trauma is this big event that leaves you stuck and frozen in that experience. Then there's developmental trauma, which is the subtle trauma that happens over a subtle period of time in childhood of emotional disconnection. And from as simple as your parents lacking the emotional attunement of what it is that you need to feel safe. That over a period of time, we start to develop this sense of, because it's more important for us to fit into the family system. And we know in our core, we're wired to be in connection, in family, and to have our needs met. So over a period of time, we start to slowly disconnect from our soul, from who we truly are, because it's more important to survive. So this can happen at the most subtle way. Let's say mum or dad emotionally disconnected from themselves because they didn't have the safe space to process their grief from their childhood and from things that they've experienced throughout their life. We are communicating nervous system to nervous system with our parents when we're children. And when mum or dad are emotionally disconnected from themselves because they didn't have the space to grieve their emotional experience and be in that right relationship with their emotions, we're looking into an empty mirror that can't reflect back to us our fullness. So coming back to what you shared before around presence, how fucking scary is that for a child, for your nervous system to be looking into mum or dad and then to have nothing reflected back to you because emotionally their nervous system can't communicate to you safety. So for a soul to be welcomed into this world and to be welcomed into this family system, this family unit, and to feel alone within that system, within that family unit, is the scariest, loneliest thing that you can experience as a human. And this is where it's more important for us to disconnect from our soul and fit in and play whatever role we need to play in the system to bring balance and harmony into the system. So a system always wants to be operating in balance and harmony.
Relatively even keel. Never too high, never too low.
Yes. And if there's dysfunction in the system, other parts of the system start playing certain roles in order to bring balance and harmony back into the system. So if mum or dad are emotionally disconnected from themselves, the children start taking on certain roles to bring back balance and harmony into the system. And this happens very, very subtly. So the heart of this system is the relationship between mum and dad and the relationship that they have with themselves first and foremost.
Which is why they say one of the best things you can do as a parent is love your partner. And then if you take it even, peel back the onion even further, one of the best things you can do is love self.
Yes.
If you take care of self, you do the healing work, you take care of your health and wellness, and then take that energetic cord into the duality of the A and B relationship, then that gets mirrored onto the child. And that value system gets deeply ingrained into their nervous system, which, as you said previously, is now providing a ripple effect for how they orient and interact with the world.
Yeah, 100%. When parents make their children more of a priority than their relationship and than themselves, typically it's their wounded inner child seeking to fulfill their unmet needs from their childhood through this child. And that is how subtle we pass trauma down generationally. So the greatest way that you can provide healing for your family system, for your relationship, is by you healing the younger parts, you, the little boy or the little girl who is still seeking to have his needs met through other people or through being a certain way, getting love, approval, validation. Or what I experienced was my father wanting to give me everything he never had as a child so I could experience the joy and happiness that he never experienced. But in doing so, he wasn't emotionally present and he thought love was giving me everything he didn't have. I didn't give a fuck about that. I wanted a dad who was emotionally present. That was more important to me. And this is like the subtlety of developmental trauma that we experience. Now, this is relationally. There is a deeper trauma that is, I would say, causing most of the pain and the problems that we see in today's society that no one's really talking about. And it's the lack of ritual and the process of ritual and grieving as a family. When we have the space in childhood to know that our grief is welcome because our parents have met the depth of themselves and they've learned how to hold their grief, these parents become elders. They're not just old people. They have wisdom because within grief is wisdom. And for the longest time, for thousands of years, grief has been a natural way of living. It's been a natural process of how things had been done. If someone was grieving, or if a family was grieving, the house would have something on it so people know that they're grieving, or they would be wearing an armband or something like that so people know that, yeah, he's going through grief right now. But because we've become so disconnected from grief, we've become disconnected from feeling our pain, so that we then project our pain onto the world, onto our partner, onto our children, and we think that we're loving them. But we haven't known anything else. Like, we don't know the difference between unresolved pain and trauma and safe love because we didn't receive that in childhood. That's the thing with developmental trauma. We don't know the difference. We don't know the difference between emotional disconnection, emotional abuse, someone not actually being emotionally available to reflect back to you your fullness. And we think that's normal. So we then get into adult relationships and we have no idea what safe love actually feels like. So that would be the deepest pain that we experience in adult relationships is based on the lack of ritual and the lack of the grieving process that is no longer something that's normal in our family system. And
I think part of the reason for that is even the term grief has energy to it. And most of the world doesn't know how to be or orient themselves around that word because they think they have to do something. They think they have to fix. They think they They want the person to go back to who they were or fast forward to who they could be, not realizing that in that moment, that's a really necessary time frame where they're in the cocoon, learning, evolving, processing, navigating, exploring, reflecting, praying, crying, in order to become the butterfly. And what's both beautiful and awful within the human experience is who's willing to sit in the cocoon with you. And personally, when I went through a lot of grief, losing both parents to terminal cancer, I felt isolated and misunderstood. It was, oh, he's going through it. That's not fun. I'm going to go navigate fun over here. And then I'll come back around when he's back to who I thought he was. And then it becomes a judgment. So then your grief is now weaponized against you, which then leads to, I'm going to bury this human emotion. I'm going to put on this mask to be somebody that's going to be loved by the tribe, at least temporarily. And then I'm going to go home and I'm going to, in my case, figure this out through sauna and ice and strict pull-ups and playing with my dogs, because those are the only things that made me feel safe. Mm-hmm. And then I didn't want to leave my house because it was like, whoa, this is the only place where I actually feel like I can be unapologetically myself. And then I realized, whoa, what if I created a safe space for other people to be unapologetically themselves? What if fitness became the vessel to give people and grant them the permission to be unapologetically themselves? Oh, what if we created social connections? Because that's what I felt like I needed at that time when I was so lonely. And now, like you said, that grief became wisdom. And now we're in a season of attraction because the world loves outcome. They don't love the messy middle. And that's what I love about this conversation is like you're painting the picture perfectly. But I also want to arm people with tools in their toolbox to be like, hey, how do we navigate the messy middle? Because not everybody makes it to the other side, or they stay in it longer than they probably should.
I love that you brought that up. People, especially today, because of the lack of support we've had throughout our life of lacking grief and lacking ritual and lacking the safe spaces to grieve, people are so uncomfortable with their own emotional experience that you being in a grieving process is so uncomfortable for them that they can't even be around you. And that's something that I've had to process, of myself being a mirror for other people to either choose and accept the invitation of their grieving process or not. So I love that in a way you were able to trigger people in that way, and hopefully they listen to this and they're able to start to understand, oh, that's actually what I was uncomfortable about. When exactly what you just shared there, the season of being in a cocoon, people just want the summer all the time. Now, as humans, we are very, very, very connected in the way that nature moves. We are not far from nature. We came from it. We are part of it. We're in relationship with it all the time, whether we know it or not. And just as nature goes through seasons, so do we as humans. And the reason why nature goes through seasons, for that to be breakdown, is on the other side of breakdown is the rejuvenation, is the expansion, is the growth. But people aren't willing to be in the season of the winter. They're not willing to allow themselves to be in their grief, in their sadness, in the breakdown. And they either stay stuck there or they spend their entire life avoiding it until eventually one day it smacks them in the face. Mm-hmm. Because you can't live in summer forever. And the way of being with your grief is living in right relationship with all seasons, in whatever is seeking your attention at any given moment. And that's just how I've navigated and, you know, how I choose to navigate my way through the world. But that lack of understanding that things need to die in order for the new to be reborn. What we're speaking about here is also the example of the lack of rites of passage and initiation from boy to man. There is nothing today. I never experienced it. I never experienced a very clear season of my life that was a transition from boy to man.
Interesting. I did.
Yeah.
Most people did not, and it's very relevant to this conversation. I was sitting at the kitchen table at my childhood home. My father was battling cancer. He was in the hospital. My mom worked as an accountant and like in finances and was a CPA for some things. So it's like numbers were her thing. She used to sing like the multiplication tables with us when we were young. And ironically, going back to why we're here today, today's her birthday. Like she would have been, I believe, 76 today, which is cool. So the irony of us coming together today and her continually coming up in this conversation is special. But I remember, I think I was 27 years old. At that point, I'm like, I'd lived a little bit and I'd done a few things. But then all of a sudden, I watched her walk towards me, opening a piece of mail. And it was a medical bill that she was not expecting for over $20,000. And Ryan, I remember the look on her face. And for whatever reason, I was ready. And inside, I thought, whoa, I need to go from a boy to a man. And I'm going to figure out, going over, under, around, how to help my mom with this bill that we were not anticipating. My whole life changed after that. Where the victim mentality was gone. There was no coulda, shoulda, woulda. It was find a way. It was, at that time, push all your emotions away. All gas, no brakes, just keep moving forward. That worked until it didn't work anymore. And then right around 34, 7 years later, the wheels started to fall off. And that's when I realized one of my favorite thought ideations, which is, why can't we do both? Why can't we fall into our masculinity and be a safe space and be an energy that is a provider and protector based on how society views man, but also find time and space for rest, rejuvenation, emotional intelligence, grief, tears, real hugs, not little side hugs in passing, a real hug, real eye contact, real conversation. And I think what also helped trigger that was a book that you probably have seen or should see, The Courage to Be Disliked. Right around 34, I was like, I don't care if you like me. I care if you respect me. And you're going to respect me because I'm going to be unapologetically myself in pursuit of peak expression. And I'm going to bring everybody along that wants to come play. And so there was a clear line specifically for me. I don't think everybody goes through that. But also, I think it sharpens your lenses as you talked about listening and sight and using our senses. When you're 27, it's a little easier than when you're 18, 19, early 20s. And also when it has to do with death of a loved one. Higher power energy is like, hey man, you're needed right now. Like, let's go. And you kind of have this thing called NFC, which is no fucking choice. You either sink or you swim. And at that moment, I was like, I'm going to swim. And I had no idea what I was doing. I kind of just figured it out as I went. But then also realized, whoa, in the pursuit of trying to figure it out, I was an active participant. And I think also modern day, so many people, men especially, are like, I just need more information. I need to like learn from other people's mistakes. I need to take this course. I need to get more certifications. I need to get more Instagram followers. I'll be ready when. And when never comes. Or when comes, and they're not actually the person they're supposed to be in order to navigate that moment. And I think that's the big part of this conversation is no man just like has the tools. You actively participate in the human experience, and then as a byproduct, you accumulate them by honestly giving your best effort and fucking showing up.
Yeah. The tools are found within the pit of our grief.
Beautiful.
Yeah. When I took off on social media, within about 6 months, I went from 5,000 followers to we had hundreds of millions of views.
Wow.
Yeah, like I think it was like over 200 million views between Facebook and Instagram.
That's cool.
And people always ask, like, what did you do differently? And it was, I allowed myself to enter the cave of my grief and then share that. And that's the difference between a safe man. Most people think, well, they're trying to become this high value man by accumulating all of this stuff and avoiding their pain even more by, if I just get this next thing, if I just have this certain amount of followers, if I just have this, if my relationship is this certain way, or if I even have a relationship, right? Like I just got to get to that. And none of it fucking matters. A high value man is a man who has the awareness that his value comes from his presence. And coming back to your initial question around presence, all of this stuff, the inability to grieve, this unresolved childhood trauma, this lack of rites of passage and initiation from boy to man, that has become disconnected generationally. My father didn't receive that. His father didn't receive that. And it just, this perpetuation of this generational disconnection from our pain. Until we go back and grieve that, you're really going to struggle to be present, because anxiety, fear, worry, doubt, insecurity, all of that is a fear of something that might happen in the future based on what's happened in the past. So we can't be in the present moment because we're either worried or we're living in a state of anxiety of what might happen in the future based on what happened in the past, or we're stuck in the past, right? And then we're projecting that into the now. So we can never truly be present. So this is why men are, they struggle to be so deeply present, because they're always so worried about the next thing, or living in such a state of anxiety or doubt or fear or whatever it is, right? Until we go back and reclaim that little boy and create safety in our own nervous system, we're going to struggle to have a mind that can be truly present in this moment. And coming back to the family system, like my mission here is for men to be so deeply present in their relationship so they can be the pillar within the relationship, so he can have a beautiful, thriving relationship. And then that relationship can then be the safe space, the heart of the family system for the next generation, to have that safety, to have their needs met and their essential rites of passage that they need to go through to be their full self. And this is how we change the world. And until we understand the importance of that, the pain and the suffering that we see today is just only going to perpetuate. On the drive here, on the drive here, my heart was fucking breaking for the woman in America that was stabbed. Did you see that?
I did see that.
Yeah.
With the gentleman that was right behind her, and the judge that let him out after numerous challenges with the law. Yeah, I saw that.
Man, I was crying on the way here. I was just grieving the pain of...
So innocent. Just went in and was like on her phone. He seemed to be a little agitated when you watched the video. And then he comes around and just, I think it was 3 stabs. the video stopped there. You don't get to see the specific stabbing, but man, oh man, that's really sad. And I'm one of those people that, like, I want to understand the why. I want to understand the why of the judge, why the judge felt like somebody with double-digit challenges with the law deserved that opportunity. I mean, I would understand if it was a few. You know, we all try to exercise compassion and give people a few chances, but in this instance, I think I read like 13 to 15 interactions with the law. That's scary. You know, I don't know if he was on fentanyl or if he was on different things that are prominent in today's world, but
yeah,
that's a big thing in the world, is really trying our best to be the best that we're capable of becoming. But then if you give too many chances to these other energies, they infiltrate our world. And at some point you talked specifically about drawing boundaries. That sounds to me like a pretty clear boundary that needs to be set, whether it's psychiatric help, psychological help, or whether that's just time with self to navigate why they did what they did. But that gentleman clearly has childhood wounds that were unresolved based on his upbringing, that probably were passed down from generation to generation, then got involved in a tribe where that type of behavior got him socially accepted and loved in some way, shape, or form. And then as a byproduct, has continued to do it because of that innate cure, like the cure of I'm seeking love and acceptance.
yeah.
The Trident family taught me something really important this last year, that we are all a bundle of stories, both good, bad, and everything in between. All of their cold brews remind their customers that they are part of something bigger than themselves. I start my day with the Sweet Cream Cold Brew as I am prepping my mind and body for fitness, service, coaching, and podcasting. With various locations in San Diego, they offer over 14 nitro cold brews and a variety of specialty drinks. You can find the perfect brew and pair it with one of their treats from the Keto Bakery. You can check them out over at tridentcoffee.com and use code ALLSMITH to take your coffee experience to the next level.
Man, the fear that I saw in her, of her knowing that she was dying, just broke my fucking heart. And as I was driving here today, I was just feeling this sadness of it's a bad day for masculinity. And the reason I felt that is because people with now their inability to grieve this and feel this, it's now pointing fingers and blaming, which is perpetuating the exact fucking thing. By me driving here and fucking crying and feeling the pain for that poor woman that was just living her life, escaping a war zone to be here in America, and then to be met with that from a man who has deep unresolved childhood trauma. Because no one in their right mind is born into this world in a safe, loving family and turns out like that. Mm-hmm. That doesn't happen. There's a deeper issue that's happening here, and it's the lack of support that boys aren't receiving to be supported into their fullness of becoming a man in safe, loving families.
Real quickly to pause you right there. This is gonna be a tough part of our conversation today. But so much of masculine culture when you're young is body count. Oh, if I just sleep with a bunch of girls, I get the high five from the boys. And because of that, that leads to the human mind thinking, what can I get away with? At the detriment of a female body that is able to procreate. Whether there's protection or not, you now go down this rabbit hole of the term masculinity. Just to, right then and there, some people probably grab onto violence, too many sexual partners, maybe a label of like some sort of like beard or tattoos or something that like floats to the headspace as far as like the human mind wanting to like put that word in a box to understand it. So that way it's like, oh, it's this. It's the Cliff Notes version in my head as opposed to taking on all the context, which makes it messy. But in that culture, bad behavior is almost celebrated. And my thought process is like real masculinity is real connection with a woman, which echoes the light and the energy and the voice of God or higher power. You want to protect that at all costs. But somewhere along the way, sleep around culture became masculinity. And now we're seeing this transition with online dating and technology where women are now actively participating in that too. Oh, if the guys are going to do it, I'm going to do it too. And then that's creating this rise in like, women are strong. They don't need a man. Like, we're going to do the things that they're doing. And, there's some biological differences. But psychologically, it's creating this clusterfuck of a society that now has a ton of violence and bad behavior is actually being celebrated. What are your thoughts there?
My thoughts are the most dangerous thing in the world is a man who didn't have the space in childhood to progress from boy to man. And he's walking through life as a wounded boy seeking to have his needs met through the world or acting out his unresolved pain on the world.
Mm-hmm.
When we don't have our needs met in childhood or we experience some form of pain in childhood, we no longer try and get that from our parents. We then seek to receive those needs from the world. So, for example, a man who didn't have the emotional support that he needed from his father will seek the approval that he has what it takes to be a man through creating success. And that's why when he achieves it, it's never enough and he has to go to the next thing. And then he gets the next thing and it's never enough again. And then he begins to lose himself over time. And it's more important for him to have all of this validation and this success and this status than be present with his family. But underneath that is this little boy who's stuck and frozen in this energy of seeking this emotional support and connection with his father. And until he...
What if the father's not existent? Right? And that's kind of what I was alluding to with the sleep around culture is like, now this woman is potentially impregnated, gives birth to a son, and the father's not there. And like, I would love to say, every relationship has this conversation. Hey, we've been together for a while. Like, let's bring a child into the world. Let's create a safe space. We've both been working on ourselves. Let's do the thing. The reality of the matter is we have dopamine addiction. We have a comfort crisis. Mm-hmm. People are abusing drugs and alcohol. And then there is sexual connection that is taking place, which is bringing children into the world. And then as a byproduct, there's not a family need dynamic or village that creates that safe space to create the optimal man.
Yep.
How do we fix that?
Yep. The problem here is when a man is operating from the consciousness and maturity of a little boy, it's how can I get out of feeling this way?
So it's coping rather than healing.
Yes. So when a man's operating from the boy, it's how can I get out of feeling? It's how can I get out of responsibility? Because responsibility is overwhelming for a man who's operating from the emotional capacity of a child. Like, think about that. A little child, right? A 5-year-old now has this responsibility of a family. Mm-hmm. And most men are operating from the emotional capacity of a child. And that's why life is so overwhelming for him. So he wants to escape. So the boy consciousness, he wants to get out, he wants to avoid, he wants to escape. So that situation you just explained of that man not taking responsibility of his actions and showing up for the people who need him is a little boy who is lacking the ability to take on that responsibility of his actions. When he's operating from man consciousness, it's how much can I be with this? How much can I be with what this is inviting me into? And how can I now go beyond myself and be the home for others?
I like that. I love the concept of how much can I be with this, or even asking the question, what is this teaching me?
Yeah.
As opposed to practicing the art of escapism and deflection, which a lot of people modern day are good at, in ghosting culture. Let's just avoid it. It'll go away.
Yeah.
And it does until it comes back twofold.
Mm-hmm.
And you still don't listen, and it comes back
Yeah.
threefold.
Yeah.
That's a very interesting dichotomy.
If you think of the, that situation that happened here in America we were just speaking about, when a man's operating from the wounded boy, he doesn't understand the ramifications of his actions. It doesn't compute for him. He doesn't understand the weight of his actions because he's still operating from this lens of this little boy who's just in survival. Like when you see that, you see this person in such a state of survival that they have to do that. So it's until we create a culture and a society where grief is a natural way of being, it's a natural ritual, it is a way that we live in relationship with life, we will hold on to our unresolved pain our entire life and we'll project it onto the world, and we're going to fucking struggle to have healthy relationships. Most people, from what I've experienced, are not in healthy relationships. They're in coping mechanisms. They're in a relationship that is helping them avoid the pain that they've been running from their entire life, right? Or this relationship is the perpetuation of the pain that they've been feeling their entire life. And until grief becomes ritual and part of how we move through the world as humans, we will continue to hold that pain and bring it into every single situation. And I don't see any change in the world happening until this becomes a way of being.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's coming to mind, Ryan, is this unique paradox around drinking from a fire hose of information. I'll relate it to nutrition first, and it's like you look back at the food pyramid, probably the biggest lie in the world, right? Like all these grains and all these things that get you addicted and inflamed and then funnel you towards the quote-unquote healthcare / sick care system. Now you're stuck in this rat race of, I have these symptoms, I'm going to get penalized if I don't have health insurance. I have to go to work to pay off my debts to keep the system in operation, right? And we'll do whatever we need to do to keep the system operating in flow. But in the same realm of misinformation that we see in nutrition, we see it also in masculinity and in human evolution, in the sense of we're saying go back and grieve your childhood traumas so that way you can become the person that you're capable of becoming. Is that right?
Yeah. And live in relationship with it.
Love it.
Yeah.
But then we also see modern culture that gets stuck in the rat race that I alluded to, and it becomes this survival of seriousness, and people don't fucking play anymore, right? Their version of play is, I'm going to go to the bar, or I'm going to scroll on social media, or I'm going to get lost in online streaming systems, as opposed to being curious about the world and maybe being like, wow, I'm going to go ride some waves. I'm going to feel the sand between my toes, and I'm going to feel the energy of the elements. And I'm going to go for a hike and connect with nature, and I'm going to throw a ball, or I'm going to get on all fours and I'm going to play with the neighborhood kids or my nieces and nephews or a friend's kid, and getting more primal, which almost is like in synergy with playful, childlike demeanor. And it's like, if children have this like white belt mentality, all things are possible. And then as we get older, we're like, that's not for us. I don't do that. But when we're young, we kind of want to try everything. And so it creates this paradox of like, what, you want me to be a child, but then you also want me to be an adult. And I think people get lost in that if they're not really in tune with listening and the context that you're saying, like, I feel you and I hear you. But most people just read the cover page of Men's Health and they're like, what can I get from this? What are these two dudes talking about in relation to healing and masculinity and, you know, and safe versus unsafe man? Like, what can I grab from this that's going to make me better right now?
How's it going to make me more money?
Yes. And real quickly, going back to relationships that you talked about, I love learning about people. I love connecting with them. And I think it is part of our ancestral tenets. But most of the world is loving things and using people, as opposed to loving people and using things.
I see that as a reflection of the disconnection from self. Most people operate and navigate their life in the most surface level way. And then they get to the end of their life and they go, oh, fuck. There was a whole other depth of life that I didn't experience because I was so afraid of my pain. What I mean by that is, and I know you've experienced this, but if someone's listening that's experienced someone you love passing away, or maybe you had an animal or a dog that passed away, or a relationship breakup, things that reveal our grief, it brings you straight back into life. Because on the other side of death is life. And in order to love fully and to live fully, you must also honor the other side as well, which is death and grief. But we live in a society today where we only want life and expansion and growth. But that's not how nature works.
No.
We live in a two-sided reality.
So true.
And when we learn how to live in relationship with our pain and with our grief, we get to experience the fullness of life. But when someone's operating from their unhealed childhood trauma, like what you shared before about, they're so serious, there's so much about acquiring more things, more stuff, and it's more about the stuff than the relationships and the people around them, right? Like, to the extent that is how people live their life in such a surface level way, because deep down they're still operating from the consciousness of a 5-year-old that's still seeking to finish their unfinished business from childhood. And this is how we sleepwalk through our entire life, and we aren't able to be truly present to the things that actually fucking matter. Is because we're still trying to fulfill what we didn't have in childhood. The way I call it the hole in your soul. When you're in that family system and you don't have your needs met of emotional connection and whatever it is that you need, and if you're listening to this and you think, no, I had everything, I had a perfect childhood, I can guarantee you that's not true. We all experience something because we're human, right? We're human, and your parents were human and they weren't perfect. I can guarantee you that. And there were moments and times where they're emotionally disconnected to themselves and they weren't able to meet your emotional needs, right? And if you had a perfect childhood, I would look at how are your relationships today? How connected are you to yourself in the way that you navigate and move through the world, right? When we have that disconnection in our family system, as I shared at the very beginning of this podcast, that it's more important for us to survive. So what happens is we choose survival over being ourselves. And because we choose survival over being ourselves, we then build a life upon this foundation of being and becoming whoever we think we need to be in the world in order to survive, to get our needs met. And a whole lifetime of that, we perpetuate the disconnection from our soul, our heart, the true essence of who we really are at our core. And that's the hole in the soul that most people, that's the void right there. That's the void. The hole is what people are trying to fill with a relationship, with making money, with success, with status, with followers, all of it. I know this because I've done this and I've been there. And I can guarantee you can make $1 million, you can have all the followers, you can have the most beautiful relationship. None of it fucking matters because I've done it and I can tell you right now, I lost myself in it every time. None of it matters, right? I have all the money in the world I could ever, I don't have to worry about money. Like I've made enough of it right now. I don't have to work for years, right? And I can tell you right now, when I had the first $1 million hit my bank account, I was like, cool. And what's the mission? What am I? This means nothing. It's just a fucking number. It helps me and supports me through how I show up in the world, but that's it, right? It provides for me, provides for my future family. Incredible, right? But if I was waiting to see that number to finally feel something about myself, I've lost the game. But because I had already...
That number doesn't define you.
It doesn't.
It's a part of you being yourself and having the ripple effect with the world. So as a byproduct,
yes,
it's something that you knew was going to come no matter what once you came out of the cave of grief and spent time in the cave of grief first. Something that's coming to mind, Ryan, is, I have it written down here. We inherit wounds that we never asked for, but we can choose not to pass them on. And that's a big one, because I think back to like basketball culture, and we used to have coaches that would say these types of things of, oh, you're just trying to survive right now. It'd be during, conditioning week, and you're doing a bunch of sprints, and there's a certain time that you have to make it underneath. And some guys you could tell were like really fast, but they were kind of dogging it just to make that time. And yeah, they checked the box, but they weren't really getting better. And so when coaches picked up on that behavior, they'd be like, cussing you out. F this, you're better than that. Da, 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 you're just doing that so that way. And it was times that 7-footers on the team needed to make. So it's like, so you're 6 feet, 6'4", like you're going to make these times. It's hard, especially after 15 to 20 of them, but you're doing it. And it's also 5:36 in the morning, you're uncomfortable. But it's that moment of disruption, right? Where you then get to choose. If you don't ask, the answer is always no. So if you don't ask yourself, should I change? Am I notice any patterns based on my family dynamic, based on my relationship with my parents? Sometimes though, that curiosity is lacking. It's not just curiosity in the world, it's curiosity with self. And then, maybe you've had a traumatic or a really tough past, but I lean into Ted Lasso often. Be more curious than judgmental. So don't judge your past. Recognize it. It's data. Don't let it to emotionally infiltrate your headspace. Use it to be the change that's going to project your future. And so that's my other thing I want to discuss with you is, if men are making tough choices and they do come from a tough past, for me, sports helped me learn, oh, wow, this could be an outlet if I make the change. I'm going to run faster. I'm going to do the things that nobody else is willing to do. Maybe I'm not the biggest, the fastest, or the strongest, but I can stand out by talking more, taking more charges, showing up on time, kicking ass in the weight room, doing certain things that added value to the dynamic, but we're kind of gap filling the shit that wasn't highlighted all the time. It was the grunt work. And doing that consistently was whoa, this makes me feel loved and a part of the tribe. And then as a byproduct, had the ripple effect into everything else, which I didn't even realize at the time. I was I just want to be different. But not everybody has that courage to be different. Sometimes people are I want to conform. I want to be the same. And so how do you kind of create that ideology? Going back to that quote, we can choose not to pass on these wounds that we didn't even ask for. But you have to make that choice. How do you empower a man that's in that transition, right? That he's like boy to man, but he's not really sure. Maybe he's trying to cross the bridge, but he's toggling back and forth.
Yeah. The stages of grief, right? The first 3 stages is denial, that you have pain and suffering, that you have unresolved wounds, or denial of the experience or the pain, right? Then there's bargaining. You bargain your way out of it. It's like, oh, I've done enough work. Oh, childhood wasn't that bad. Oh, my life isn't, it's not that bad. My relationship, it's okay. Or I don't mind being single. The third one is anger. And when people say, well, I'm not angry, I would ask you, where do you get easily moody or irritable or frustrated? That's your anger.
Can you say the 4 stages again? Denial, bargaining.
Yep, denial, bargaining, anger. First 3. But the first 3 is where most people stay stuck and they loop. Denial, bargaining, anger, and they loop. Because anger is the lid to our unresolved grief, the pain and the emotion that is actually beneath the surface that's seeking your attention. And because we haven't had the right space to feel and process our grief, we loop. We stay stuck in this looping cycle of denial, bargaining, and anger. And this is what prevents men really uncovering their potential and healing the younger parts of them and awakening man consciousness. Awakening the safe man, the mature man, the man who has the courage and the willingness to enter the cave of his grief. Now, a man will continue to cycle until it's painful enough. Typically, there'll be something that causes him enough pain to go, I need to fucking change. And a lot of men wait until it is painful enough before they change. And how I know that to be true is I've worked with over 1,000 men all over the world, and every fucking time it's when their woman is about to leave them or their woman leaves them. And then they're completely left on their own with their grief. They have no other option but to start asking a greater question of, what do I do now? Who do I reach out to? Right? So they stay stuck in the first 3 until and the anger of the third one is the threshold. So in Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, there's a part within the hero's journey called the threshold. And this is where we have the decision and the choice to accept the calling to adventure and cross the threshold into an unfamiliar, unknown world. And in that unknown, unfamiliar world is us entering into the cave of our grief. And what's important in that journey is being supported and having community, having brotherhood, having the right people around you to hold you in you being in that cave and entering that cave. Now, when we cross that threshold, we enter into the 4th stage, which is depression. Now, not depression of hopelessness, but depression of being with it. Intentionally and consciously being with the emotion that is beneath the surface. So it's the sadness, it's the grief, it's the shame, it's the guilt, it's the fear, all of the unresolved childhood trauma or emotions that you haven't had the capacity or space to actually be with fully and feel and experience. And then, only then, we reach the last stage, which is acceptance. So think about that. When and how people navigate their way in the world, right? How disconnected they are from those stages of grieving. And understanding that grief is a relationship with life. I flew from Austin, Texas to LA. I spent 2 months in Austin, met some phenomenal people, had some incredible experiences. When I got to LA, for a few days, I was in the cave of my grief. I was feeling it. I was allowing myself to actually be in that season of grieving, that season of being over there and all the connections and all of that. And if I hadn't allowed myself to actually feel that, I would have just gone to the next thing, or I'm not in relationship with life, because grieving is our natural process of letting go. Just like nature, right? Nature's natural process of seasons, it allows the old to let go, right? So a tree will push its leaves off the tree in winter, right? So it can grow new ones in summer. It understands the cycle of letting go so we can regrow and be reborn.
How do you get people to that level of depth? So many men that I've crossed paths with, some close friends, some acquaintances, they don't spend time with their feelings. And then when you think about feelings, it's this lack of relationship between the head and the heart. And so many men are overly logical, and then so many women are overly emotional. And the answer is creating a relationship between the two. Mm-hmm. But you talked about like taking time to sit with your feelings. I don't know many men that do that. I learned that through the pain, but there's a lot of people that I know that haven't gone through real pain, or they just took that pain and threw it into a file cabinet and it comes up once or twice a year into some sort of big issue, and then they just push it away again. But you also know the difference between survival and thrival. And then you think about the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. Most men are constantly in sympathetic. It's fight or flight, get shit done, abuse caffeine, on to the next thing, use fitness as a tool, use making money as a tool. If they're single, and a lot of people, even if they're not single, just sexual partners to distract their mindset. And then all of a sudden, distraction, deflection, getting shit done, society's checkbox of you're successful, you're masculine, you look good, you're strong, you're making money, you're doing the things. But if there are no consequences, what creates the disruption in order for them to change and upgrade their operating system?
Living life in this way is a choice. It's a choice of actively allowing yourself to be in relationship with your sadness. Your capacity to experience joy, happiness, the gratitude of life, of this moment, to experience the fullness of love and what's possible through love, is to be in relationship with your sadness and your pain and your suffering on the other side as well. It's a choice. So on the way here, I intentionally allowed myself to cry and feel the pain and suffering that the feminine has experienced from the masculine for so many years, and the lack of safety that women have experienced from these men, as we saw on that fucking video of that man stabbing this poor woman for her just sitting there doing nothing, right? Like, I choose to feel that. And I choose to feel that so I can fucking do something about it. But not from a place of reactivity, not from a place of response. Like, actually do something about it. How I'm going to do something about it is by me being the safe space for men to finally feel the grief that they've been avoiding their entire life. Imagine if that man just had the safe space to fucking feel it and to reclaim that little boy within him and to grieve that and feel it. He wouldn't have acted out and done that. And like, that's just a big mission of mine. Like, I know that, and I know not everyone needs to have that mission or sign up for that. But when we understand the weight and the ramifications of our actions as men, that's when we get to choose to walk with our pain and suffering in one hand and then love, gratitude, and presence in the other hand. And it wasn't until the woman I loved more than anything left me, abandoned me. I was in a foreign country. I was left in this empty villa by myself. Within 30 minutes, I got home, she was gone. And I was faced with myself. My nervous system shut down. I went into convulsions. I was throwing up. I was vomiting. And I just entered the cave. And I chose that. And through that was the realization and the pain and the suffering of the hurt that I had caused this woman because of the lack of safety that she felt and experienced from me, even though all I ever wanted to do was provide her the entire world. Mm-hmm. That right there, that picture, that's what we call self-sabotage. We don't know we're doing it, right? And in that was my sacred commitment to help men actually reclaim their unhealed, unresolved childhood wounds and trauma and actually progress from boy to man so they can be the safe space for the women in the world.
Was that the tipping point for you?
That was the real tipping point for me to enter the cave of my grief. for many years, I'd learned about it. I'd intellectualized my healing. I'd read all the books. I listened to all the podcasts. I went to all the events. I had invested over $300,000 in my personal development by this time. And I still fucked up. I still made my partner feel unsafe because I was missing this one important thing, which was I wasn't actually feeling it. I hadn't actually entered the cave and embodied it, right? I knew about it, I understood it, but I hadn't embodied it. I hadn't actually gone in and faced the pain that I had avoided my entire life. Because when you're no longer operating from the wounded inner child, you don't need anything from a woman. You don't need anything from the world. Therefore, you get to be the safe home in the world or for this woman. I don't need anything from you. Therefore, I can just be. And I can be the safe, loving presence that you need to be your fully expressed self. And until we reclaim our unhealed childhood wounds, we will continue to see our partner's emotional expression or what's happening in the world as a threat to our nervous system, that there's something wrong with me, or that I'm broken, or that it's my responsibility to, deal with this, instead of I can just be present and respond. That's the difference between reaction and response. When we're reacting, a lot of the times it's right from our unresolved wounds, right? When we have the capacity to actually respond to our partner, to the world, because we've been with our pain, we have the awareness of what's coming up within us, and we have the capacity to be with that fully, we're good. And a prime example of that is if you have a fear of abandonment in a relationship, you are going to constantly be on the lookout for threats, for potential threats that this person might leave me. You can't be present, right? Because you're constantly on this lookout for these potential threats that this person's going to abandon me and I'm going to be left on my own. But if you have the capacity to be on your own with your grief and you have the ability to meet that pain within yourself, even if that happened, it's okay, because it's like, I'm good, I've got myself. So now you're no longer living in this state of fear, trying to manipulate this person to be a certain way so they stay, or so they treat you a certain way or love you a certain way. You won't be able to set healthy boundaries, right? You won't be able to set any boundaries. This is where the nice guy comes from in relationships. You won't speak your truth, right? You'll become whoever you think they need you to be so they don't leave. And this, over a subtle period of time, this is how we cause pain and suffering in relationship, because of the lack and inability to grieve and to be with your pain fully.
I love that you said all of that, and I really appreciate the personal sharing, because it gives myself and our community insight. I can feel the passion in your voice. And I think it's also really interesting, the idea of wanting to do and be more, which I think myself and a lot of men either have or have had. But people will forget what you did. They'll forget what you said. They'll never forget the way you made them feel. And that saying comes up time and time again. And I think it goes back to this God-like energy that women possess. They have an intuition that is second to none. And they can feel when you're not seeing them, when you're not feeling them. And they're trying to communicate in so many different ways, some subtle, some over the top, some just right. And over the course of time, if it's not landing, eventually escapism will set in. And it's an interesting thought, because even though the intention of man, especially in your situation, is positive, the intention's not always seen. It's not always felt. And it goes back to unexplained expectations are premeditated resentments. She was trying to share with you subtly an expectation that you couldn't see or hear. You felt like she wanted you to be a mind reader, which then led to reaction rather than ownership and then response. And it took that experience to catapult this next chapter of your life, which I think a lot of people can relate to for sure. And the last thing that I'll say, I wrote it down here. A safe man creates space for others to breathe and be heard, seen, and understood. Mm-hmm. An unsafe man suffocates the room with his needs.
Yeah.
Free is the way to be. Life beats us up a bit and causes some bumps and bruises, but that doesn't mean we have to stay on the sidelines. This is why we've partnered with Kinyan Labs. Get back to doing what you love with this incredible portable device designed to get you back in the game. Kinyan is on a mission to move people from pain to possible with their top-rated red light therapy and laser solution, which tackles inflammation along with muscle and joint pain quickly and effectively. What I love is that it's portable and rechargeable, making it easy to actually incorporate into my everyday life consistently. It's small and lightweight, so you can throw it in your gym bag or work bag, or even an overnighter. Kinyan's lasers and LED combo make this cutting-edge device extremely versatile for use with general aches and pains, as well as chronic back pain, arthritis, post-surgery recovery, endometriosis, and more. This has been an amazing tool keeping my elbows and knees pain-free for pressing, pulling, and squatting in the gym. Great tools like the Move Plus give me the freedom and flexibility to continue living life on my terms without limitations. There are a lot of reasons why over 15,000 people are using this device and rating it 4.7 stars and above. Head on over to kinyan.io and use code ALLSMITH at checkout to begin your pain-free journey.
I need this. You're not seeing me. I. It's subtle masculine narcissism. It's not even purposeful. It's based on unmet needs as a child that then subconsciously live rent-free in between your soul, in between your ears, and then diffuse into all of your relationships until you either recognize, make the subtle changes, or go through something so disruptive that forces you to be like, okay, if I always do what I've always done, I'll always be what I've always been. I either am going to keep living this, which is the definition of insanity, or I'm going to upgrade and change. And that's not easy because of the ego.
Yeah.
And it takes moments like that to deconstruct the ego, self-reflect on self. And I know for me, like, there was a moment in time where I always talk about like the honest look you give yourself when you're brushing your teeth. It's tough to lie to yourself. And there was a moment where I was like, I don't like you about me. Like, I don't like who you've become. And it's not that I purposefully made decisions to become a bad guy. It was that I felt like I had to do those things to receive love from the tribe. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until having that honest conversation with self, separation from that environment, separation from that tribe, the hiring of a healer so they could mirror me better and help communicate with me. I was at that moment where I was willing to ask for help. And this became this. Mm-hmm. And I think there's beauty in that. That's why I love the work that you're doing, because it's so cool to ask for help. Because then it's like you learn, you evolve, you have a connection, the loneliness starts to dissipate because you think that, oh, this is just me. I'm going through this. And you're like, dude, nobody has this shit figured out. And just because we've gotten to a place doesn't mean we're not going to backtrack. You don't get to a place of like, I'm self-actualized, I'm healed, I'm done.
Yep.
You continue playing this game and you evolve and then you backtrack. You evolve and you backtrack. It's not this, going back to the stages of grieving. It's not linear periodization where you just like hit all 5 things and then you're good. Mm. It's like you go through that loophole of those first 3 for a bit, then you hit that 4th one, then you hit depression for a little bit. And you're like, oh, this is tough.
Yeah, cycles and seasons.
And you might even accept for a little bit, and then you get triggered by this thing, and you go back over here, and it's just that's what's tough to quantify the human experience because our minds want to. Mm-hmm. We look at measurables and trackers and metrics all the time, but everything that's measured doesn't always count, and everything that counts isn't always measured. Humans are malleable, And energy is malleable. It's like what Bruce Lee says, like, try to be like water. Try to be adaptable. Try to be flowy. But the mind doesn't work that way, man. It's like every year we got to make more money. We got to be better. We got to look better. The six-pack's got to be better. It's just like more. But that hasn't worked. It hasn't led to peace, which in my opinion is one of the highest forms of success. It's like peace.
Yeah. People won't understand the importance of, well, it reminds me of people who are in their dying moments, right? They are just more present than they've ever been a lot of the times. And they're touching with the realness of life as they're riding on the verge of this transition. And I think that's something that we get to choose to navigate the world in that way. And that is also a byproduct of healing these younger parts and being in right relationship with our grief. Is people want to be someone of depth, right? There's so many people, including myself. I always wanted to be someone of depth, or I hear from people, they're wanting to cultivate more depth and fulfillment in their life. It's not something you build. Your depth is a byproduct and a result of when you come back home to yourself and you reconnect with your soul. Depth is a byproduct of that, because I don't need you to be a certain way for me to be okay with myself. I don't need you to give me validation or approval for me to know who I am. I know who I am because I've reconnected with that and I've come home to myself. And it's only once we come home to ourselves, we then get to be the home for others.
How do you teach that? Because I agree with you. And I think I got there on accident, and it's still a constant work in progress. But you get to a point, to echo Mark Manson, it's just like the subtle art of not giving a fuck. Like, when you put in the work consistently, you look over your shoulder and you have proof of concept of, like, I know who I am. And if I lose track or I fall off path, I'm going to go back to this reservoir of habits to then sharpen the knife to make sure that I can cut. But I do think, to echo Jordan Peterson, there is the social hierarchy, especially amongst men, of comparison culture, especially when you look at social media. He talks about if there's 7 men in an elevator, they're all looking around like, okay, I'm better looking than that guy, make more money than that guy, smell better than that guy, I bet my wife's prettier than that guy. There's constant comparison.
When he's operating from the boy.
Yes.
100%. Yeah.
Yes.
A man doesn't do that.
No. And like, but how do you learn that? Like I learned that, like I said, on accident in this process of just like, I can't control anybody else. I can't even control my own outcomes, but I can control my effort. I can control my attitude. I can control my enthusiasm. I can control how I choose to show up in the world. And then by leaning into the controllables, it allowed things to then gradually improve over the course of time. But one of my goals and part of my question here is, and you too, we had to learn that the hard way. Is the hard way like the only way to learn that? Or is there a better path to create buy-in with younger individuals to help make their journey a little smoother than ours?
Yeah. All initiations require some form of sacrifice. Something that's meaningful to you. And there has to be that cut.
All initiations require some form of sacrifice. That is fucking gold. Yeah. Mitch, cut that.
I think one of the greatest ways a man can begin doing this deep inner work is, and understand the importance of that, is to look at his relationship with women, with the feminine. As what you shared before, women have an incredible, I can't even fucking begin to explain how powerful, like women have superpowers with their intuition.
Mm-hmm.
And reason being is because they're operating more within the feminine energy. The feminine energy is more connected to spirit. So a lot of, spiritual mentors say that women are the protectors of the spiritual realm and men are the protectors of the physical world, right? But a woman who's more in her feminine that you love, that is in your life, is more connected to God, to spirit. And she will be the closest thing to God, to truth, that you'll ever come across. And what I would say to any man is to look at your relationship with women, with the feminine, because that will reflect right back to you from what place, what consciousness, what capacity you're operating from within yourself. You could even ask them, a woman that you love more than anything, right? Where do you see my potential and that I'm not operating within it? Where or how could I make you feel more safe? Or could I... intentionally asking a woman that you love where you might be missing a blind spot around you not operating in your potential as a man. She'll fucking tell you. And I think that's a really powerful thing, like being in that relationship with the feminine and having that reflection and being willing to accept those invitations, because those are the invitations into your potential. When it comes to initiation, we either consciously choose it or it comes around and smacks us in the face at some point. For me, I didn't consciously choose the initiation of facing the grief of my unresolved childhood trauma and actually feeling it and being in the grieving ritual and process of fully being with that pain and suffering. So I then projected it onto her and she left me and abandoned me, and I had no other option or choice but to face it. So this is where you can ask the people around you and have these mirrors and these reflections. Because that's the thing with blind spots. We can't see them. Even if we turn around, we'll always have something we can't see. Right? But there's people around us who love us, who see our potential, who see our fullness, right? And you can ask them. I think that's a very powerful practice that you can do if there's nothing evident in your world, in your life right now, that's fucking screaming at you. Yeah.
I love that so much now, but I can't help but tinker with former versions of me and wonder about how that unlocks deep wounds of rejection. And I think I'm a lot more callous to it now, which in entrepreneurship, you get told no so much. You are trying to help somebody that you think would be a good fit for your program, and they don't see it. They're not ready. They don't want to put in the cut or the sacrifice. They just want the answer. And I think a lot of us men want to keep getting better, but my close friend Logan Galbrick, who's been on the show, he says, your number one correlation to success is your willingness to accept negative feedback. And sometimes negative sounds like bad. And when I was younger, it did. But now it's like, give it to me, because it's only going to lead to failing forward. And then like you get to respond faster, so you don't get on the boat and go the wrong direction, then have to turn around, come back and figure out your new path.
Yep.
But I think there is moments in time where you go back and you operate within the boy for whatever reason. Noticing that is crucial. But then, you get this feedback from somebody that means more to you than anybody else. And it's maybe momentary, but it's this feeling of, I'm not good enough. Maybe she sees these characteristics in somebody else, and it's this comparative culture, and now you feel less than.
Yeah.
How do men navigate that in a mature way to then become the man that is living up to this potential that's now been revealed?
This is the result of unhealed, unresolved, toxic shame. For example, let's say a woman brings to her partner, brings to this man ways that he could show up better in the relationship from a place of invitation. It has to be healthy communication. That's one thing with feedback. If you're going to give someone feedback, it has to be from the right place, not from a place of criticism or ridicule or attack. It has to be from a pure invitation.
I like the question before giving feedback of like, hey, are you open to feedback? Hey, are you open to receiving
permission?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think in doing so, you then weigh and measure the energy. And it's like, okay, let me know when you are. I'll put it away for now. I'll write it down so it can be a reminder for a future conversation. I think it's really respectful. It's cool.
Yep. Yeah, permission. Permission is massive. It's probably the first step in healthy communication is permission. But imagine this woman brings to this man's awareness as an invitation as to how he could show up better in the relationship. Most men see that as an attack on his nervous system, that there's something wrong with him, that he's not good enough. Or it could be as subtle as she's not happy or she's not okay emotionally, and he sees that as an attack on his nervous system, that he's not doing a good enough job for her. Beneath that is the little boy and the unresolved shame of potentially the weight and responsibility he took on of how his parents felt, right? Because one of the core needs that we need to have met in childhood is to know that our parents are okay. Because if they're not okay emotionally, right, and they might put on a poker face, but if we can feel, we're communicating nervous system to nervous system. If we can feel that they're not okay emotionally and they're not being with their emotions fully and dealing with their grief, as children, we make it mean that it's either my fault or it's my problem. That perpetuated over a period of time. As humans, we're meaning-making machines. So this child then starts to make this meaning about it, that if they're not okay emotionally, it means that it's because of me. There's something wrong with who I am. So this man gets into a relationship. He's a grown adult man, but he's still operating from the maturity of this little boy with this unresolved toxic shame. His partner's not okay, or she brings to him feedback. It triggers the implicit memory of that little boy who felt and thought that there was something inherently wrong with him. And it triggers this toxic shame. And what happens is he doesn't see the opportunity to step into his potential and become better. He sees it as an opportunity to react, to close off, or defend. And in that moment, he then makes it all about himself and takes it away from the invitation to either step into his potential, or he makes it about himself and takes it away from his partner's emotional experience and makes it about himself, and therefore isn't actually just the safe space that she needs to be in her process. So this is what happens with unresolved toxic shame, is we constantly see feedback and invitations where we could be better, or we see feedback as, for example, maybe a client didn't sign with you. You see that as another reflection back to you that there's something inherently wrong with you.
If only I was better. If only I was good enough. Whatever.
Yeah. So it triggers that shame. And as humans, we do everything in our power to avoid feeling shame and our pain. So we'll do everything to avoid feeling that. So this is where we go into a shame cycle where it's, okay, well, I got to be better then, right? Okay, well, it's your fault, right? Blame, complain, or justify why you're feeling that way. And I've worked with a lot of professional athletes who have been extremely successful in their field, even in the CrossFit world, right? Names that everyone knows. And beneath that is a little boy who experienced so much toxic shame that they've punished themselves through their life. That's the thing with toxic shame. You will punish yourself because at your core, you feel that there's something inherently wrong with you. So you have to punish yourself and be and become whoever the fuck you need to be in order for people to love you, like you, accept you, and for you to be celebrated or fit in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what's so interesting about that, great depiction.
Yeah.
But what's so interesting about that is the world celebrates it. When you get celebration from people you care about, and then, you know, you're young, probably entering the world of athletic space, you start getting money. You start getting the sponsorships. You start feeling like a celebrity. People are asking for your picture.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting offers. You feel like this is the linear development that I prayed for, that I asked for. We're doing the thing. So it becomes this paradox because people become phenomenal at working out and horrible at working in because you can't see it. I mean, how many times have we seen in the fitness space, somebody's like, oh yeah, I PR. And they're like, let me see the video. No, video doesn't count or whatever, you know, as a joke.
Yeah.
You can't really see the inner work. You can feel it. You know, when like, you know, somebody went through a depressive space and you see them glowing on the other side of that. But in the messy middle, you probably didn't pay attention too much. It didn't light your heart on fire. It didn't perk your eyebrows. You probably just created distance. Versus you and I like lean in and I'm like, I'm curious here. I want to understand what got you to this point, and then I want to go deeper. Where did it start?
Yeah.
And then where would you like to go? What do you imagine this looking like on the other side? And does that even land on your radar? Or are you so fogged down in it right now that we just need to be there? And I'm curious your thoughts, like when it's getting celebrated by the world.
Yeah.
And this other thing over here, it's like it costs money to work with a professional. It costs time to work with a professional. You're navigating guilt and shame because you feel completely fucking misunderstood by the world. But you know, you being the practitioner, not the receiver of the service, that it's going to unlock so many doors for them in the future.
Yep.
Mentally, physically, emotionally, energetically. But it's not celebrated in the same way.
It's the need. It's that need to be recognized and to be seen and to be celebrated.
Mm-hmm.
Little boy, little girl, that man reaching in the choir here.
Yeah.
The
And
amount
the reason why I say that,
Yeah.
like going back to where we started the conversation offline, I like talking to dope people. But the project grows with views and analytics and shares and all the things that are completely outside of our control. But then you also pause. I mean, the amount of people that I've reached out to have great conversations with, they're like, oh, let me see your insights. Let me see your analytics. Why is it worth my time to talk to you? And it's funny because it's like, it seems like a barrier to entry. And now I don't take it personal. I'm like, whatever, we're going to keep going. Maybe there'll come a point in the past when our paths cross. Cool.
Yeah.
But younger me, it was like, oh, I'm just going to be so good they can't ignore me. And it's funny, just in the ideology of all of this is like, it doesn't matter, but it matters.
Yeah. It's all from what place is it coming from?
Mm-hmm.
I've connected with some, as I shared before, and I'm friends with, I've connected with, I've coached, I've mentored some of the biggest names in the world. A-list celebrities, big athletes, and I know for a fact that no matter the level of success, then no matter the amount of money you have, none of it fucking matters. None of it matters. And every time I work with someone of that level of status, of money, of success, it reminds me every time. And I'm so grateful that I've had that experience, because every time I'm reminded, it doesn't fucking matter if you're emotionally disconnected from yourself and if you're continuing to run from yourself, because you can achieve all of that. You can experience it, whatever. You won't be present to it though. You won't be present to it, or you'll do something to fuck it up, or you'll be alone. Most celebrities, these people are high value, like all of them that I've worked with, deep loneliness. Just disconnected from themselves. And that's why they've become an actor. That's why they've become a performer, right? Because coming back to that family system, we be and become whoever we need to be in order to fit into the system. We take on certain roles. And when we don't get those needs met in the system, we turn to the system of the world, right? If I am seen, if I create this level of success, I'll never be alone. I'll never have to deal with the loneliness that I felt in my family system. So no matter how much they do or achieve or the level of success or status, until you go back into your roots, where you came from, and resolve and grieve the unfinished business from your childhood, you're walking through the world as a grown adult child.
Yeah.
Guarantee that.
It's very
100%.
well said.
Yeah.
What's coming to mind is so much of the masculine world is loved for what they do, not who they are.
Yeah.
So then performance culture becomes romanticized. And I think Jim Carrey talked about it. He said, depression is when you're playing the role of this avatar that's not actually you. So in theory, being an actor, maybe even being an athlete for some people, is outside of who you are biologically. You're performing, you're doing this thing. You received love for it, or genetically you were, predetermined to do this thing. And I'm not saying it's bad.
Mm-hmm.
I think simply recognizing that is an interesting thought experiment. And I think there is a deep loneliness, because when you look at people like Avicii or Robin Williams, they become masters of their craft, but then seemingly completely misunderstood on the other side of things. And I think people then see them. It's like going to the Christmas party and it's like, hey, I saw you on that new movie that you did. That was an amazing role. Or, hey, I saw you on ESPN score all those points last night. And eventually there'll be an end. And the question becomes, hey, what do you do now? Who are you? What is your title? And then based on that response, people determine the level of respect that they're going to give. And I've spoken to a lot of former NFL and NBA players, former Olympians. That's something they navigate. Like, they went from winning gold medals to all of a sudden now they're trying to create a business, or they're, trying to pay it forward, or they're coaching. They're doing something else that's not in the limelight. And the level of love and respect is significantly depreciated. And I think that's so fucked up. And it mitigates the healing journey, because you have to be so strong in your root, in your core, in your relationships to face that. Because you're right, it does feel like an attack on you. And so when you work with some of these high profile athletes, actors, performers, where does that conversation even start? Obviously listening first, but there's so much empathy and compassion on my side, because they're geniuses in one capacity and then so broken in the other.
Yeah. I think Alex Hormozy said this, and it was that some of the most successful people in the world are the most traumatized, who had the most painful childhood.
And it's almost because, like, you're running from the fact that you're not good enough in pursuit of you're not good enough. And somewhere within the messy middle is like this running and chasing that makes you really successful.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Tony Robbins has a quote, and it's that success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. And I think what he's speaking about there is that achieving a level of success and status, making a certain amount of money, without being deeply connected to your soul, is the ultimate failure. And how we come back home to who we are, to our soul, is to navigate the grief of our childhood and who we felt and thought we needed to be in the world in order to be loved, instead of just knowing inherently who you are at your core and what you're worthy of. And the thing is, a lot of this won't really land for a lot of people, and that's okay. When the time is right, it will land. And I just, I wish to share this message for people to come back home to themselves from an intentional place of like, I'm choosing this initiation rather than I've no other option but to face this now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I've asked some of the most successful people in the world what they desire most. And every single one has told me anonymity. They want peace to grab a coffee or get breakfast with a friend or a loved one without being observed, ridiculed, or judged. They live in a sense of constantly feeling watched. In some ways, with Palantir, we all do now. But it's an interesting thought process because I'm curious. Like when people reach out to you, I'm assuming now it's probably word of mouth. Hey, I heard about, your skill set. I saw your social media. I saw you on YouTube. They probably do some sort of research or background check at this point. So there's a little bit of buy-in, but I'm sure there's an ideology of like, Ryan, fix me. Where do you start in your services and your healing journey with your cognitive intake, probably trying to get an energetic familiarity with the person, and then creating a path forward and a roadmap of upfront expectations, but also making sure there's a sacrifice on their end to realize like, hey, this is a journey that we're going to go on together. I'm not doing the work for you. I'd like to do it with you.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that look like for somebody that wants to go down this path with you?
Yeah, great question. I don't have a roadmap for people. A lot of times that's the ego wanting to or needing to have all of these things in place and in plan for a certain outcome or expectation. And who's to say that I know better than what they need? The way to describe this is our body heals naturally.
Mm-hmm.
When we experience trauma, our body already knows what it needs to do. If we have this safe presence and the safe space for our body to naturally do what it already does, which is heal, right? We have a tremor response, right? Where our body will naturally be with the emotion, with the energy and shake it off, right? We cry. There's a reason we cry. Our body naturally knows what it needs to do to come back into integrity with itself, come back into wholeness. Okay. How I like to describe this is, and one of my teachers shared this with me years ago. And imagine you're cutting vegetables and you accidentally cut your finger, right? And you got stuff all over your hands. What are you going to do? You're probably going to go wash your hands, right? And then you're probably going to wrap a bandage around it and cover the cut, right? What you're doing is you're creating the environment for your body to do what it naturally does, which is heal. You don't have to sit there and stare at the cut and go heal, 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 heal. Let's try and send more red blood cells to this cut to try and clot it. Right? It's not of the ego. It's coming back to what our body naturally knows what to do.
Mm-hmm.
So the space is creating the space, creating the environment for your body to naturally be with what it's seeking to be with. So when someone has that safe space through non-judgmental eyes, this loving presence that gets to see this child in them that's fucking hurting, that's starving for this love, attention, to be held, to be nourished, to be soothed and taken care of, when that child within this person has this safe space, their body already knows what it naturally needs to do. Yes, there's guidance. Yes, there's support. Yes, there's sometimes advice, right, and counsel. But for the most part, it's the safe space for them to grieve the pain that they've been holding on to and carrying their entire fucking life.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I've been able to create that space for people is because I've created that space within myself. And I've met myself in those depths. And I continue to live my life in relationship with my grief, pain, and suffering, and the little boy within me, and the different versions of me that I have been throughout my life. And that, in a world where we have become so disconnected from our grief, from our childhood, from having these safe spaces for us to feel and come back home to ourselves, that's where I get to be the home for men. The safe space for men to come back home to themselves so they can be the safe home for the women in their life, the children, their families, their community, like the people that are relying and depending on them emotionally. So this work goes well beyond just here are the things you're going to learn. No, I spent $300,000 learning shit, learning how to be a man, learning masculine practices, working with certain coaches and mentors and therapists. At some point, we just need to enter the cave of our grief and receive the wisdom that our body inherently is carrying. And when we come back home to that, it's like you get to awaken the gifts that you are welcomed into this world with. And that's beyond anything my ego could try and teach you. Yeah.
I'm hitting right here because I received that so well in the sense of working for universities, working for gyms around the world. I always got posed with that question. What's your plan? Like, let's create this roadmap. Let's carve a path forward. And I had this really profound moment, I think back in 2014, where I had football on in the background and, you know, laptops out, and I'm writing all these programs that in my brain, I'm like, I have this degree in exercise physiology. Like, I'm building out this awesome squat program for this person. They're going to be so strong. Their body composition is going to improve. I have nutrition notes, mindset things. Like, I'm creating this masterpiece. I didn't know it was ego at the time. I thought I was like the hardworking dude on a Sunday. And I had like 3 people come in on that Monday, and one of them was like, hey, I hurt my knee playing hockey.
Yep.
The other one was like, hey, I'm kind of hungover today. I need to get a win. I don't really want to like hammer it hard. Yeah. Another person was going through emotional trauma on the other side of a divorce. And like, I had these programs, man. I was like, no, I've spent all this time doing this thing. You guys are going to do my program.
Yeah.
And I just watched like the disservice that I was trying to fit like a fucking square peg in a round hole.
Yep.
And so for the next decade, I said, fuck this. Like, I'm going to trust my intuition, and I'm going to observe the body language of these people when they come in. I'm going to feel their energetic cord. I'm going to have a conversation. But more importantly, as you said, I'm going to create the container. And then within that container, we're gonna chop it up and kind of play ping pong, and I'm going to help co-pilot your journey based on the reservoir of education and experience and what I'm feeling in this moment. The best part about this is it worked. It grew the business into a 6-figure coaching business in 1 year. Like, we're doing all this success and helping and impacting a lot of people. The downside is it's tough to justify that to your boss that doesn't conceptually understand that wants to quantify why they're paying you, where all these things are going. And it wasn't until stepping away from the metrics of performance culture and the measurables of control that I got into the space of flow, which I think relates better to feminine energy. But it's a very interesting dichotomy in a world that wants to put you into a container with rigid boundaries to understand where their money and time is going.
Yep.
Even though that's actually creating a disservice to the individual.
Yep.
And when you lean into that heart center and you're doing things for the right reasons and you become the person that is able to provide that space, it's fucking magic.
Yep.
It is fucking magic, dude. But I struggled for years based on trusting the intuition, but struggling to create buy-in from the people that I worked for. And even just yesterday, I had somebody come in and it was his second session, and we're using just the protocol that we know, the protocol that's worked, and there's tons of adaptability and learning and infiltration. And honestly, sometimes it's less about fitness and more about being.
Yep.
And my goal sometimes is actually just to get out of the way. But he was very curious. We had like 8 people in there, and he was like, how do you do what you do? And I was explaining to him about the concept of just like poetry and motion and pushing and pulling and carrying and hinging and squatting and playing, really, and allowing us to be more connected to childlike and dog-like energy. And he was like, I don't totally get it, but I can feel it. And I was like, perfect.
Yeah.
Keep showing up and you're going to get it over the course of time. He was like, I'm in.
Yeah. That's one. If I have a conversation with someone that I'm about to work with, they already know this, by the way. They're like, I don't know what you're going to teach me. I just know that there's something here for me. And I'm like, perfect, because I'm not going to teach you anything. I'm going to create the space for you to come back home to who you already are and for you to receive the lessons and the gifts that you have within yourself instead of me trying to fucking tell you, right? But when it comes to it being quantifiable, two things here. First thing is I had a client the other day who is very, very well known in the fitness world. And he shared with me, he was like, it was late at night, I had a big day, but I was doing my daughter's hair. I was doing her hair so for the next day she could wake up and her hair would be right, like this little girl. I think she's like maybe 6 or something. And she was concerned that he wouldn't be able to do it right, and she was freaking out, she was panicking, whatever. And he's like, let me just try, right? So he's sitting there, he's doing her hair, and he does it, and his other daughter says to her, he did it. And then she turns around and she goes, and gives him the biggest hug. And he was like, whoa, what was that? And the look in her eyes, he was like, this is what it's about. And if he didn't have the presence or the capacity to be so deeply present with his daughter and what she was needing in that moment, because his wife wasn't available in that time, if he was so worried about work and anxious about work, where he's doing it, but he's not really there emotionally, she would have felt that, right? And I just asked him, what is that worth to you? Like that right there, what is that? Is that worth the $10 million a year business? Fuck the business. Like that's what it's about. That's what you're going to think about on your deathbed. You're not going to think about how much money you made in a year. It's going to be that. It's going to be your daughter's eyes looking back at you when dad was able to be the safe, loving presence that she needed and the support that she needed. And I was like, that right there. And the second thing is that I'll have people finish, however long we work together, and I'll check in with them in 6 to 12 months time. They've made more money than they've ever made in their entire fucking life, right? Their business is completely different. Their relationship's different for the most part, right? There's still people who are going through their journey and they're not ready yet, right? But for the most part, these things happen. And I'm like, what is all of that worth to you, right? And that's how I measure success. I don't give a fuck about if you achieved a curriculum or tick the boxes. I'm like, did you do the things that you said you were going to do? Did you create the space, right? And yeah, the continuation of this work. Obviously, there's many things that we do throughout that, but it's being able to get out of my own way, out of my ego, allow consciousness or God or whatever to flow through me, and for me to work with what the moment's needing in this person's experience, to either be a mirror for them or facilitate the safe space that's needed for them to have that shift or transformation. But they have to have that in their nervous system. And we all have that capacity. We just need the right safe space for that to occur and for someone to guide us and lead us into that within ourselves. So it's beyond anything, any curriculum or program or teaching. It's, that's the difference right there between a coach and a teacher and a facilitator. A facilitator is someone who is connected to spirit and they can work with what is it that this moment is needing, and they're able to stand on the edge. They're constantly standing on the edge of the unknown. I don't know what's going to fucking happen on this session, right? Before I came here, actually, I led a group of 20, so I run a group program as well. I just led a group of 20 brothers, and I don't have any notes before I get on that call. I have no fucking idea what's going to happen. Right? And there's nerves every time. I'm like, this is beyond me. I just trust that whatever's going to unfold is exactly where we need to go. I've been doing this for years, every single fucking time. someone will say something, it'll trigger us to go through a process all together as a collective brotherhood. Everyone was experiencing that same thing and needed to receive that today. Every time.
That's rad.
Yeah.
I'm just like you, man. I go in blind into podcasts, and I like writing down quotes that come up. I love looking through your Instagram and like things that are interesting to me. But I think that's where it's at. I think when you go in a little bit too regimented, it's like a questionnaire as opposed to a conversation. Like the conversation is a lot more fun. But how did you develop the original confidence to step into the arena when you didn't have the $300,000 worth of self-help and the personal work, and you weren't quite the man yet? What did life look like at that time? And how did you have the confidence to keep putting one foot in front of the other? Because early on, like you said, maybe 5,000 followers, nobody knew who you were. You obviously had to become the man. But in the process, you probably also had to curate some sort of sales funnel, some sort of word of mouth, some sort of buy-in, maybe a team, maybe a website, maybe some information where people can feel some sort of professionalism or reputability, which is also a made-up construct in the realm of capitalism and sales, but people like it-ish. Yeah. What did that journey kind of look like for you? Because you obviously have the facilitation, innate nature and culture and energy about you, but people can't purchase things that they don't know.
I am a continuous student. I am always willing to receive feedback and to continue to meet myself. So with that being said, I was fortunate from I say fortunate, but most people wouldn't have accepted the invitation. When I was 20 years old, right? Actually, no, when I was around 18 years old, right? So 10 years ago, when I was around 18 years old, I was running a construction business at a young age, right? One of my core wounds, right, really led me to growing up quickly. I had to grow up very fast in childhood. I took on a lot of responsibility at a very young age in order to bring back the connection in my family system. Or that's at least what I tried, right? So everything I teach and share has been an entire life of like the family system, the disconnection I experienced in that, who I became because of that, the pain and suffering, almost taking my life. Like there's so much that came from the emotional disconnection I experienced in my childhood, yet I didn't understand the depth of emotional disconnection I experienced because I had all of this stuff. I grew up racing motocross. Like I had a pretty epic childhood compared to most people around me. But it was all based on performance. It was all based on doing, on working and achieving and striving to be better and become better. And that led me to creating, I built a 6-figure construction business at a young age. We're doing really cool things. Up until the age of 22, I was running this business and I ended up, managing multi-million-dollar construction sites. One of the things with this core wounding as well is I just say yes to everything, even if I had no fucking idea what to do. So there were times.
I've been that guy before.
Yeah.
Say yes, figure it out later.
Yeah, but to a default.
Yep.
I would say yes because I didn't want to say no and deal with the shame of I'm not actually good enough to do that thing, right? So I'd be like, yeah, for sure, I can do it. For sure, yeah. So I'd get myself into these situations where I'm like, holy fuck. I have no other option but to figure this out right now. So that served me to a degree. But anyway, I figured out very early on that I was empty. I was deeply alone. I was performing in my sport. I was training. I was working. I'd pushed all my friends away. I had a girlfriend at the time. I broke up with her. And that breakup revealed all of this grief. I was like, holy shit. I don't know what to do. I don't know who to turn to. So I started CrossFit. Right? And I had a coach, I had a mentor, and I always had coaches and mentors supporting me. And I know unconsciously I was placed in that environment for that coach to be my guide into the personal development space. Okay. So yeah, I'd been in the personal development space for, it's like, I think coming on 10 years now of me learning, doing the work myself and facing myself, But in that period of time, I left construction. 20, 21, 22 years old, put all my tools in the shed. I was making over 6 figures a year. The 21-year-old, like, that's pretty cool as a 21-year-old, right?
Yeah.
I thought it was. But then I got to a point where I wanted to kill myself. I fucking hated my life. And I knew something had to change. And I started crossing this threshold into the personal development world, listening to Tony Robbins, going to the events, starting to get around different environments, different people, listening to podcasts.
Real quickly.
Yeah.
There's a difference between listening to podcasts and doing things where there's not the skin in the game.
Yeah.
Versus actually going to the events and having the courage to put yourself out there where maybe a part of you could be revealed. How did you get there?
Man, specifically, there was one event that came into my town. So I was living in Brisbane, Australia. One event came in my town.
LSKD land.
Yeah, I know, I'm from Motocross World. That's where
Jason
developed LSKD.
Yeah, that's cool.
I saw you wearing those socks and I was like, man, that's cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
Yeah.
Jason's been on the show before. He's become a really good friend. I'm stoked. Brisbane, Australia. We got to get out there.
Yeah, man. So there was an event that came to Brisbane and I saw it advertised on social media and I was like, I've got to go to this thing because I've been following this guy on YouTube for a long time. And I asked everyone around me, my closest friends, my brother, they all said no. They're like, nah, it's like $70 for a ticket. Nah, it's on a Sunday. I'm good. And I was like, fuck. And it was so scary. I walked into that event by myself. I had no idea. But what I did know, and I had the courage to get a VIP ticket, which was $100, because I knew the people that I want to be surrounded by are sitting in the VIP section. So I went to this event and I had the courage to go there by myself, walking in, looking around like, hey, who do you know here? Like that real awkwardness, right? And I sat front row at this full day event and I sat right next to one of my best friends today. And he runs one of the most successful personal development events companies in Australia now. Whoa. And we've grown together. We've been on this journey together. And if I didn't go to that event, we wouldn't have sat next to each other and I wouldn't be here today on this podcast because that close friend of mine, we're family, we're brothers, and we've been on a journey together. That was my real support and initiation into the personal development space.
The courage to take the leap, man.
Yes.
I mean, I listened, man, it was probably like 5 or 6 years ago. I was listening to Henry Rollins on Joe Rogan. And he was kind of talking about how he kind of listens to records. He's in the music space. And he'd be doing pull-ups or push-ups while kind of listening to those records, kind of processing his life a little bit. He had a big map in there. And when he felt a calling to go to a place, he would circle it on the map, and then he'd figure out a way to get there. And Joe asks him and says, did you ever want to travel with people or anything like that? And he's like, oh, no, man. Every time I try to like coordinate schedules, there's work, there's kids, there's all these things that go on. So he's like, I just fuck it. I just go, and I meet people along the way. And he's like, it's become such a beautiful ritual within my life because I've been around energies, I've met new people. He was like, it's transformed everything in my life. And he was like, that doesn't mean I'm just an isolated, lonely introvert. He's like, I am just so comfortable with myself that I'm willing to put myself out there. And then if people want to come along, I share my plan, and then we can collaborate together in pursuit, but then we can also drift, and that's okay. I thought that was a really healthy way to look at it because more often than not, we want to do everything with somebody. It feels lonely, or even like eating breakfast by yourself feels weird. Part of my healing journey has been every week buying myself flowers. And the healer and mentor that I hired was like, dude, everybody's going to ask you when you do that, like, oh, who's the lucky lady? Or they're going to be like, what'd you do? And when you go, oh, no, these are actually just for me. People are like, what? It's like people don't understand it. And it's like you went to this event just for you. Fast forward now 5+ years. You're like, whoa, that was a transformative experience. But it also took the courage to go, the understanding to get outside of yourself and your own experience to realize what type of people do I want to be around? What kind of environment do I want to create and be a part of? That's a different level of thinking.
Yeah.
That I think for people listening, if they got nothing else from today's conversation, like that right there is a game changer.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And yeah, man, that like, I think that event was, you know, I'd started my journey and going to, that was the first, I'd gone to some personal development events, but that was the first like success orientated event where it was about, okay, like building a bigger and better life for yourself. So after that, I closed the door on my business. And this is the thing with grief. It's, are you willing to honor and allow yourself to allow things to die? I had worked for years and years and years to become qualified, to become certified, to learn all of the nuances of building a house. Right? Not just a house, but an architecturally designed house, and understanding engineering and all this stuff, right? And I walked away from that. And when I walked away from that, I still have messages today from builders who messaged me and said, I don't know why you're doing this, because you're going to be big in the industry. You're making a huge mistake. I literally have messages on my phone today. And
you should print them out and put them on your wall.
yeah, I'm not driven by that anymore. I used to.
Yeah.
I used to be driven by that, right?
Totally.
But allowing myself to grieve that period of my life, that season of my life, and have the humility to go work at a fucking liquor store. As I built up a clientele base in the gym, I knew I didn't want to be coaching people in the gym forever. I knew that I wanted to be doing what I'm doing today. But it started at the liquor store, then at the gym, walking the gym floor, right? Then it turned into having a handful of clients where I finally left that job at the bottle shop. And then it was 5 years of grinding and suffering as a personal trainer, making ends meet, just making enough to get by. And eventually, you know, it started to do well, and I started to coach high-level professional athletes. And then I started working with more of the mindset, more of the personal development, and I started slowly making that transition. So I'd coached hundreds and hundreds of people before I had actually fully stepped into men's work and what I do today. And even still, right, then through that entire period of working to make ends meet as a personal trainer, making fuck all money, I invested every cent back into myself. Whatever I didn't, I actually sold my car to pay for a mentor.
Nice.
$30,000 car. And I didn't tell my dad about it because of the level of shame, because he supported me in getting that van. Used that van to drive my bikes around to go to the racetrack to practice. And I sold that van, and I didn't tell dad where I put the money. He thought I just kept it. And I had this shame for so long because I spent all the money on a mentor. He would have thought, what the actual fuck?
How'd you have that calling and that intuition to do so? How did you know that personal development was going to unlock the tools that you had inside to then create a life?
I didn't know. I didn't do this on my own. Community and environment, more important. So one of my best friend that I sat next to on that personal development event, he was same age as me. He had a multi-six-figure online business traveling the world at 21 years old. And I thought, what are you doing? What are you doing differently?
Yeah.
And that's what I just started. I became curious about the people that were living the life that I wanted to live, about how they did things. And what I noticed was they invested in themselves. And then the more I invested in myself, the more I would hear people say, the more you invest in yourself, like like every dollar you make should go straight into your personal growth and development at a certain stage. Alex Hormozy speaks about it. Warren Buffett speaks, like everyone who's created a level of success, right? And I understood that, and I took the bet on myself. The greatest return on investment is going to be the one on yourself. So I put every extra dollar that I made into my personal growth and development, and also business development, right? So I would work with a therapist or a mentor, or I'd be doing some sort of program, and I would also have a business coach at the same time. Same with today. I do the same thing. I invest in coaches and mentors and events, and not as much as what I used to do. right now I'll have some key players in my corner.
Mm-hmm.
One of my teachers, I can imagine he'll be in my corner. It's like a professional athlete. They have the fucking team,
Mm-hmm.
right? And those guys will be in my corner probably for the rest of my life.
I
You
love
know,
that.
helping me just stay in alignment with my truth, creating and being the safe space for me to feel and grieve, for me to come back home to myself. Like, they're the constant people who keep me in check, right? So yeah, man, it was years and years and years of doing that. And then I shared with you, I went through that breakup, and after spending all that money, I then started doing the real deep inner work, which was deepening and cultivating that relationship with my grief.
Mm-hmm.
And that was about 3 years ago when that happened. And yeah, so when you ask about the confidence I've had to coach and step into this with such confidence and knowing, it's because of not only what I've done myself, what I've created myself, but one thing I love that Tony Robbins says about this is he had someone at an event challenge him, right? You know how big Tony is, right? Someone challenged him and was like, yeah, where's your PhD? And he said, yeah, I've got a PhD. I've got a PhD in fucking results. And that's where my confidence came from, right? Through doing this work and creating this, like being this space for men to transition from boy into manhood. The results from that just speak for themselves. And that's why it's like, if I get on a call with someone, I'm like, let's go.
I love that. And I think I'm graduating and getting closer to that. I really can feel it. And I feel it from you too. I don't know if you watch Rogan, but he was doing his fight companion the other day, and Brian Callahan was on there. And, you know, obviously the topic of vaccines and healthcare popped up. And Rogan was just talking about, you know, things that he's seeing with autism and the work that RFK Jr. is doing. The topic of Ozempic came up, and, you know, Joe gave his opinion. And Brian Callahan goes, oh, Joe Rogan, the scientist, and starts like using credentialism.
Mm-hmm. I
And
saw that.
And he was like, don't do that, man. And he like stood up for himself and was just like, at some point you have to call a spade and make the observation that, like, back in the day, credentials created a lot of reputability. They made you seemingly an expert in the space.
Yep.
But then you pause now and you're like, you're still a human. I know a lot of doctors that have these great credentials, but now they're so busy and their cognition is so infiltrated with paying off student loans that their continuing education is done.
Yeah.
There's not a ton of education on nutrition. There's immediate buy-in based on the infiltration in the education system from big pharma of like trusting the science, but science is meant to be questioned.
Yeah.
And so I love that you brought that up, because a PhD means nothing if it's just words before or after your name.
Yeah.
To create some sort of, I'm holier than thou, you're supposed to listen to me. But I know a lot of people that have these credentials, but then don't actually practice the craft.
Yes.
They don't
Embodiment.
take care of themselves. They don't have the embodiment.
Yeah.
And I specifically used the word practice because I love that phrasing of like every day it's a practice. We're trying to accumulate reps. We're trying to navigate new experiences and put our skills to use in different case studies and opportunities, which in theory is science. I have this hypothesis. I'm going to go play with an experiment, and then I'm going to get some fucking results, as Tony Robbins said. And he has so many results that it's just like, in theory, that is the PhD. So I think making that come full circle is really cool. And I think credentialism is a very boyish mindset. It's using something to then depreciate somebody's credibility that might actually be making a really healthy observation.
Yep.
And I think that goes back into the beautiful realm of listening. What is this person saying? Does it align with patterns and trends? Is it relatively disruptive? Why are they saying it? What's their background? Like, getting more curious and seeking to understand rather than immediate judgment and then playing a game to try to depreciate one's credibility just seems off.
Yeah. Absolutely, there's a time and place for credentials, especially in the therapeutic world. And yeah, I've done a lot of study, right? And I continue Like my whole afternoon today is blocked out for study. Like it's a part of, I love it, right? But when my life becomes revolved around how many things I've done or the pieces of papers that affirm that, no, that's, yeah. There is definitely a time and place for it, for sure. But when people are controlled by the piece of paper that says you can do the thing, yet again, they're outsourcing their power to something outside of them.
Mm-hmm.
And where did you do that as a child? Where did you feel that there was something bigger than you, that you were being controlled by? Like I don't conform to the system in any way. Like there's nothing that is bigger than my essence, my soul of who I am. Yeah. And yeah, man, like I've just always lived that way when it's come to piece of paper and credentials. What's more important to me is embodiment.
Mm-hmm.
I have one of my best friends. He taught and lectured in universities in Australia and in America. He taught NFL. He learnt from some of the best in the world what they do when it comes to the body. And he's like, it's all fucking made up. They have no idea, right? And the embodiment is, there's these professional people, and then on the weekend they're doing coke. It's like where like there's so much misalignment in so that, man, even in the personal development space, being here in America, being in Australia, like I've seen enough now to know that there is so much bullshit out there. There's so much fucking stuff out there, and it annoys me because there's people out there who play such a big role as leaders in the world, yet I've met them behind the scenes and they are not who they say they are.
Mm-hmm.
I can feel it and I can see by the things they're doing and the way they treat people and how they show up with women. And yeah, so embodiment over credentials.
Beautiful, man. You live it. You're doing it. Not only am I proud of you, but I'm thankful to have you here in this space today. The alignment that we've had, the depth of conversation, being able to play ping pong back and forth has been so fun today. If you could leave people with a bit of advice or a quote or a saying or something that they can add to their back pocket from today's conversation, what would you like to leave them with?
As a framework I teach on, it's called Me, You, We. If you want to be the athlete, the leader, the visionary, the one who carries a mission forward in the world, if you want to be the most incredible partner in the world, incredible father in the world, it begins with you. So me, then you, then we, right? And the me is you coming home to who you truly are at your core. By you reclaiming the little boy within you, coming home to yourself, coming home to your soul. So you're no longer trying to fill this emptiness and this void from a relationship or from making money or whatever. So you can be the fullness for the people you love, for the people who are relying and depending on you, and then for the greater community. Your mission for the we, right? The mission, the society, and what it is that you stand for in the world and what it is you want to leave behind in the world as well. So it begins with you first and foremost, coming home to yourself and then being able to be the safe home for others.
It's beautiful, man. Sometimes the world views that as selfish, but in reality it's selfless because it trickles down into everything that you do.
Yeah, it's selfish if you aren't prioritizing coming home to yourself. There's a difference between selfish and being self-centered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well said, man. Ryan, where can people find you, man?
Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, just my full name, Ryan Moresby-White. And my mission is beyond just a business, right? It's as long as someone can even land on my Instagram page or YouTube or listen to a podcast like this, if there's something that shifts in them and changes, that's all I care about. So I just try and provide as much value as I can. And hopefully, and I trust that. Go check that out and there'll be some value there.
Today was special, man. We met for a reason, and the fact that you're stateside right now is pretty freaking cool. That's dope, dude. Guys, if you enjoyed my conversation with Ryan Moresby-White. Please rate, review, subscribe, give this guy a follow, check out his amazing content. And as always, stay on the hunt for who you've not yet become. Till next time.